Here's a glass of wine.
Woo! All right.
Lord Jesus. Tonight we are, we haven't been drinking Malbec a whole lot.
No.
We have
I just want to
just
thank
yeah, want to
whoever
thank
gave this to us.
absolutely
A Malbec.
a
I'm
Malbec.
very grateful.
It's barrel aged.
Ooh, that should be pretty good.
I'm kind of excited about that. Just maybe a little shout out. We have been so grateful for people who have been supporting our parish, partners in our mission with us. And we just wanted to start naming those so that you could recognize people behind the scenes that are really financially supporting us. We're very grateful for them. Town Pharmacy, right across the street from the church. Town Pharmacy has been a big supporter of Sacred Heart, and we're just grateful for them. I know they're supplying just medicine right now in this time of need, so please support them. Miss Monica Dumasnil, her realty agency. She's been a big supporter of us and parishioner, and Dave Broussard's AC and Heating. Have been supporters of us. We have our bulletin, and they've always been backers of us. So thank y'all so much.
Yeah, thank you to our sponsors.
Yeah. Tonight we are excited to have the gentleman with us,
Mr. Steve Gardis.
Mr. Steve, welcome in tonight.
Thank you, fathers. Good evening.
So for those of you who don't know you, Father Michael and I have the pleasure of already knowing who Steve Gardis is, but why would we call you to talk about money?
Well, I am a parishioner at Sacred Heart. I am a retired CPA, certified valuation analyst, and I also had my securities license, so I was involved in the stock market for a while.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're so happy that you accepted this invitation. It's for those who are watching. Steve is on our finance council as well, and he's just been a great mentor for both of us as we kind of learn how to just navigate the important responsibility of money.
Sure.
So.
And part of our thought tonight is I know a lot of people are worried and anxious about maybe what's going on right now in the economy. I know a lot of people may have lost their jobs. They're filing for unemployment. This just retirement, big questions, 401k. So a lot of people are worried and asking questions about money. So I thought tonight, hopefully we would have a helpful conversation about just money. Like what do we do? What do we make sense of this? And hopefully, Steve, you can bring some wisdom to us.
Well, let's see what we can do. First of all, a little house cleaning. Full disclosure, I don't have any wine since we're talking about important financial matters. Maybe I will after the
Mea culpa. Mea culpa.
Man, we'll just cheers to you.
Second thing is, again, what we're going to be doing tonight is really brainstorming. So neither I nor the parish is giving technical financial advice. So if there's anything that we talk about that you, the listeners, may think may apply to them, we would encourage them to jot it down and to go talk to their accountant, their tax preparer, their financial advisor. Mm-hmm. So we're just brainstorming, throwing stuff out there from a big mile-high picture, and if something may apply to a listener, great. And they need to follow through to see if it really does work for them.
Great, excellent. That's good to keep in mind. Thank you for that.
I love that.
Honor. So, Father Michael, where do you want to begin?
Let's just start with with anxiety and stress. I mentioned in my Easter homily how I kind of got a little bit involved in the stock market, and it was the most stressful experience of recent memory, just because it's just so uncertain. I mean, I just felt unprepared, and I thought, gosh, if people are swimming in these waters, so what do people do? What kind of how can we manage the stress and anxiety of what's happening in our economy right now? What kind of advice would you give?
Well, there's really two issues here. One is surviving in these uncharted waters in a day-to-day life. And the second issue is if you want to talk about if you are invested in the stock market, what should you have considered or have done. So those are kind of two separate issues, but they all fall under the caption that you're really talking about tonight. So as far as in general, these are unprecedented times. I'll tell you personally, when I try to figure out what all this means, and it's almost impossible. And so reading the Bible, I'm stealing your thunder here, but really does calm me down when you understand that God really is in control, because you can't make heads or tails of this. You read the Old Testament and you can see what happened to the ancient Israelites when they turned away from God. And yet, those that still leaned upon him were allowed to survive. And so, again, throughout the Bible, I can quote Philippians chapter 4. But again, it talks about the peace of God surpasses all things. And if you rely on him, have confidence in him, then there is a sense of peace and tranquility, at least I find. Of course, again, as they say, I'm preaching to the choir.
Well, no, not really.
That's a good point.
That's a great point to start. It's a great starting point.
Anxiety and stress with what's going on, I think the most important thing people need to understand is, A, this is not your fault. Okay?
Ooh.
So if you have a business and you're having serious financial difficulties, as a matter of fact, you really don't know whether you're going to even be around in 2 weeks, much less 2 months or 6 months, just understand, A, it's not your fault. This is a government-induced shutdown, and it's global. It's just not the United States. And the other thing that I think everyone needs to keep in mind is that almost everyone is in the same boat. Okay? So I don't care whether you're a small business owner or you have a big company with 500 employees, or you're running a publicly held company. Everyone is in the same boat.
Yeah.
Business has shut down. People are having to lay off the employees. We're getting some government help with some government loans, some government grants. But again, that's short term. That may get us through June 30th. But what happens in July? So again, we cannot escape from the uncertainty, because we really don't know what's coming down the pike, and I don't think Washington really does. And again, this isn't just an America or U.S. problem. This is global. So that's the big thing for everybody to think of.
Man, if I could just summarize what you just said, that was really beautiful wisdom of what I heard you say is God's in control. This is not your fault, and you're not alone. And I could just so easily see all three of those, the reverse statements being a big lie that causes a lot of anxiety. But to remind ourselves, God's in control. It's not your fault, and you're not alone. Wow.
You're not alone. And so, because the common tendency is, oh, I'm losing my business. How embarrassing. How am I going to face my friends, my family, my employees, my peers? Trust me. They're all in the same boat.
Sure.
Right. That's a great.
And I might be losing my job. That it's like not my fault.
Yes, you can kind of blame yourself.
Yeah, it goes across borders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Would y'all like to roll into perhaps what are some of the common financial questions that are people asking, or that they should be asking?
I'm glad you said that, because I wonder. Like just me, we're blowing and going, and I'm thinking, what questions should I be asking? I don't even know. Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I'm not even sure I'm
asking the right questions.
I'm asking the right questions right now. So yeah, what are some questions people should be asking right now?
Again, starting from a mile high and drilling down, the big picture is, in times like this, cash is king. So remember that. Cash is king. And the second thing that dovetails right along with that is that cash should only be used for, quote, essentials. Whatever, each individual may have a different definition of what essentials are, but we're not sure how long this is going to last, and therefore conserve your cash. With that in mind, what is my priorities? What are my essentials? I would suggest to you that your note payments, and this is almost heresy, but your debt payments is not an essential. Okay? So neither is your rent necessarily, your utility bill, and Father, forgive me, but even school tuition at this point is not a priority at this point.
Okay, now, so you took a lot. You took a lot away. You got to give me what's essential.
I can't wait to find out.
Here.
Well, basically, it's food, water, gas for your vehicle, so you can move about. Those are the essentials for taking care of you, your immediate family, and your children and your grandchildren. So those are the priorities. Now, having said that, and there was even a article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, June 21st, and the title of it was "America is Heading Towards Debt Forbearance."
I think you read that article.
Did I?
Yeah, I put it on your bed this morning with a box with a little chocolate on the Wall Street Journal.
What?
So
I'm confused. I don't know what's happening.
We don't have the Wall Street Journal.
we do not need more stimulus. We need debt forbearance. And so do not be surprised.
Steve, could you define forbearance, debt forbearance? This is kind of a big word for me. What do you mean by debt forbearance?
It's exactly what I was talking about. Don't pay your note. Don't pay your car note. Don't pay your rent. Now, having said that, it's critical that you have communication.
Right.
You got to talk to your creditors, okay? And again, reiterate, there are so many people in the same boat.
Sure.
So your creditors have already had numerous conversations along this line. The banks, every article you read, the banks are gearing up for massive loan write-offs. They know what's coming, okay? So the key thing is, can I afford to pay these things? If I can't, then I need to communicate with my creditor, whether it be my landlord or my banker or GM Financial, if that's who my vehicle is financed with, and make arrangements.
Sure.
Okay?
And I like that. That communication is really key here, that it's not just a neglectfulness that we're encouraging, but rather it's a, hey, like, let's define our priorities and let's see what can be postponed and what kind of negotiations can we make with certain creditors. I like that.
And Father, most of these creditors are already, they have a set reply.
Right.
So the banks are automatically going to give you 90-day forbearance. So 90-day forbearance means, all right, you do not need to make a note payment, whether it be principal or interest, for 90 days. Now, we aren't forgiving anything. We're just delaying. And after 90 days, we'll huddle back up and we'll reevaluate what's the situation for you personally, what's the situation for your employer, for the state of Louisiana, for the United States. And then we develop a new game plan. But for the time being, it's like we're going to call a timeout for 90 days. And so you don't have to make these payments, okay? And it gives you time to catch your breath, and we see exactly what's going to happen here.
Sure. So determine priorities and name the things that can be postponed just for survival, just to take care of your family and friends good communication with your the people,
creditors.
your creditors, and for the time being, right? That's to hold us over.
For the time being, and again, so ask for a 90-day delay, forbearance, and the banks, most banks are right off the bat, they're already instructed to give that.
Sure. What other questions should we be asking?
If you have a small business, you should definitely be trying to obtain one of these government loans or grants. So they had the payroll protection plan that was part of the CARES Act that was just passed. The payroll protection plan came out with something like $350 billion for small businesses, defined as businesses who have 500 employees or less. And it was open for about 5 days and they ran out of money. Okay, so now Congress has been negotiating between the parties back and forth since last Thursday. And before we went on the air, I heard that they think they've reached an agreement, at least in the Senate. So maybe by the time we get to Friday, the Senate will pass it, the House will have passed it, and it will go to the president for signature. And that's going to increase, put another $300 billion in the payroll protection program. Why I'm so excited about this one is the government is basically saying, we're going to loan you whatever agreed amount necessary to cover your payroll, your mortgage interest, and your utilities for the next 8 weeks.
Sure.
And we're going to loan you that money. And if you do, in fact, spend it and you retain and keep your employees, because 75% of the money that we loan you has to be spent on keeping your employees, then we will forgive that debt. So I have some clients that got $100,000 loans. I've got some clients that got $2 million loans. Okay? And if they spend it for those purposes, you're going to have the debt forgiveness. The government, the SBA, is going to forgive the loan.
It's a huge advantage.
It's going to be tax-free.
Yeah,
it's a huge advantage.
Normally, debt forgiveness is a taxable event where you have to recognize it as income and pay taxes. It's like salt on the wound.
Steve,
we're not going to have that. It's going to be tax-free debt forgiveness.
Sure. How about so I'm very excited because actually in the parish we were kind of looking at that. How about just the average parishioner in the pew who maybe doesn't have a business, who maybe has a 9-to-5 job, maybe single household or dual income family or something.
What are some financial just questions that they should be asking at this time?
Well, again, it's basically what are my priorities, and carrying that to the next step. What the federal government has done, matter of fact, the infamous phrase, the check's in the mail. So the government is sending all taxpayers who have filed a tax return with a Social Security number, whether it be a 19 return. If you haven't filed your 19 return, then they're going to look at your 18 return. And they're going to send you a check. So if married, filing joint, they're going to send a $1,200 check per taxpayer. That would be $2,400. And if you have children as dependents, they're also going to kick in $500 per dependent. So that check, we could be talking about $3,000, for example, $3,400 for a husband and wife with 2 children. That check could be in the mail as we speak, and if they have your routing number for your bank, it would go straight to your bank account. And what they've agreed to do is, after they have wired it out or sent it out, by law, within 15 days afterwards, they're going to send you a notice from the U.S. Treasury Department. They're going to mail it to you, telling you that, hey, we sent you this money. This is where we sent it, i.e. to your bank or wherever, okay? And please notify us if you did not receive it. So you will be getting that in the
That's
mail.
good to know.
That's good to know,
15 days.
especially for those that maybe didn't have their routing number already attached. They may be wondering why they haven't received their money yet. So that's good.
Now, if you're an employee working for an employer, it's the same issue. Cash is king. And if you don't, obviously, you have your savings account that you can look at. But in the event that you don't have that much in savings, or you estimate you're going to need more than that, then you need to look at your retirement accounts. Okay?
I'm getting nervous around retirement now.
I understand. So it's a catch.
A lot of people, 401 is the very popular number right now.
Yes. So here is what the CARES Act, so this is the new legislation that just signed into law, said about taxpayers being able to borrow from their retirement plans, whether it be a 401k or an IRA. They said, and I forget the exact amount. Maybe it might be up to $100,000 or 100% of your retirement plan, but not more.
Sure.
But in any event, you can borrow it, and you have 3 years with which to repay. So that's a pretty
penalty-free
deal. Penalty-free. They have removed the 10% early withdrawal penalty.
Wonderful.
So 59 and a half or younger, there's normally a penalty if you
Right.
take that out. And normally the administrator for the retirement account is required to withhold 20% federal taxes from that. So if the individual was going to borrow $50,000 from his retirement plan, they would withhold $10,000 and only send you 40. Well, they've done away with that. Said, all right, the administrators are not required to withhold anything, so you will get all $50,000. Now, if you pay it back, then within that time period, you don't have to pick it up as income. But if you don't pay it back and you do have to pick it up as income, the CARES Act also allows you to spread it out over 3 years. So you've got 3 years to pay it back or 3 years to recognize it as income. So,
great.
That's pretty
helpful.
important. Now, if you go through your retirement account, also look at your life insurance policy. So if you have a whole life insurance policy that has cash surrender value in it, it's entirely possible that you can borrow from that policy. They most probably, a lot of these policies only charge you a 4 or 5% interest rate. It's not taxable when you borrow it. It's truly debt. And so if you don't pay it back by the time you die, then the death benefits are going to pay off the policy loan, and whatever is left would then go to your beneficiaries. So that's a way of getting tax-free money at perhaps a low interest rate. So you would need to contact your insurance agent or your insurance company to acquire about a loan from your whole life insurance policy or your universal life policy.
Sure, that's good to know.
That's
good
stuff.
So what about what if someone has maybe just a couple $1,000s of savings, should they just hold that as cash is king, or should they invest in a life insurance policy at this time, or should they invest in in some kind of should they add to their 401k? Should they, I don't know, like if for those that do have a little bit of extra cash that's saved up, what should they do with that cash?
Save it. Save it. Save it. we don't know how long this is going to be, and we don't know how bad it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not the time to invest, and we would not be doing our job tonight if we didn't talk about the stock market. So we'll talk about that later. But I would suggest to you that we may not be at the bottom.
Sure.
We haven't seen the worst yet. So if you have cash, cash is king. Keep it in your hands. Do not invest. Do not pay down debt. Keep it.
Okay.
You most probably are going to need it.
Sure.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left. So
Yeah.
where do we want to head for the final 5 minutes? Mike.
You
I
want
know.
to talk about stock
I
market?
want to talk about the stock market. I mean, you know.
He preached about it on Easter.
I mean, it is an anomaly to me.
For those of you who did not
a
catch his
beast.
Easter homily, it is on our Facebook page, our Easter Sunday Mass. I invite you to go journey into the heart of Father Michael and his experience with the stock market.
Turmoil.
But Steve, maybe you could just offer some wisdom on how,
I'll drink to that.
like, what is a healthy approach? What is a healthy approach to the stock market in general, but especially during this time?
Okay. As I mentioned earlier in the program, I also had my securities license, so I was in this business. So let's be very candid. These are very unprecedented times, uncharted waters. So the advice that most advisors, financial advisors, stockbrokers give is that, man, you can't time the market. You don't know when the market high is going to come, and likewise, you don't know when the market low is going to come. And so people have a tendency to panic, and they get out at the wrong time, or they buy back in at the wrong time. So there's a lot of validity to that. But I go back. What's the underlying principle for these times, for today? Unprecedented, uncharted waters.
Cash is king.
Cash is king. Okay?
Should have did this video earlier, Steve. Should have did this video earlier, Steve.
And so, now having said that, because who am I? I'm just a CPA. I live in Lafayette.
A wise man.
You are Steve Gardis.
I'm no genius either. Okay? So, here's what I'm going to do a little practice set for you and try to do it quickly. I think we got to use common sense. Each individual needs to do. And what is so critical is history. History, especially financial history, is critical for these times. So I'm going to cite you and you think about that and what common sense might tell you. So in 2008, 12 years ago, the Dow Jones Industrials was at 8,000. Today, a month or so ago, when it hit it high, it was at 30,000. That's almost a 400% increase in 12 years. What does common sense tell you? Okay. Now, it dropped from 30,000 to 19,000 around March 15th. That was a 37% drop. Okay. Keep in mind, the last time we did this rodeo back there in 2007 and 8, in what they called the Great Recession, the market, a lot of people lost 50%, sometimes 60% of their portfolio. So we lost 37% by March 15th. It happened ultra quick. Like in 2 weeks, boom, 37% gone. Now, since then, up to last week, it climbed back up to 24,000, a 26% increase going from 19 to 24,000. So I ask you, what happened in that 4 weeks that's when the government shut down for COVID-19, the pandemic?
Right.
It was full bore, and yet the stock market rallied 5,000 points. Why? Okay. So what does common sense tells us? I mean, was that legit, or does it have further to go. You talk about valuations. Understand that the stock market, the valuation of stocks is driven by profits. So with what's going on in business today,
Sure.
with global shutdown, not just the United States, but global shutdown, people are laying off, companies are having to lay off people right and left. They can't do business. They're stuck in their homes. They have their businesses shut down. Employees are furloughed. And yet the stock market climbed 26% from March 17th to April 17th. Common sense tells us what? Now, if the market dropped 50% and the high was 30,000 during the year, only 2 months ago, that means the market could drop down to 15,000.
Easy, Steve.
The Dow Jones.
Easy,
and it's at 40,
Steve.
And it's at 23,000 today. So it could drop another 8,000 points.
So if that
Calm.
happens,
Stay calm.
what
Cash is king.
can we do?
Cash is king.
What can we say to people that are invested into the stock market if that happens, to put them at ease?
Check with their financial advisors. Make sure they're well diversified. Listen to what they say. But then you have to go into your room, shut the door, and talk to yourself and say, what is my threshold for pain? Okay, because if that market starts dropping again, and Father Michael, you apparently had one of these experiences.
Yeah, that's why I'm drinking tonight, Steve.
Can you handle that?
Sure.
Okay, and I would suggest to you, the closer you are to retirement, the more that you're not going to be able to handle it.
Right.
Because you don't have the time
To recover.
Sure.
Okay. And, we have the Great Depression, and it took 20, 25 years and a world war for the stock market to recover. So here we have the Great Recession in 2007 and 8, and it came up in 10 years almost 400%. I will tell you that's an anomaly. Okay, the Federal Reserve did a lot of quantitative easing that really had a tendency to really juice the financial markets, the stock markets. It did very little for Middle America, and I would suggest to you that if this thing keeps on going and we have another serious recession, maybe even perhaps a depression, that the Federal Reserve will not be able to do that again.
Sure.
So the next recovery period could be 20, 25 years again, rather than 10 years. We don't know. Okay?
Yeah.
So again, go into the room, turn off the lights, shut the door, and have a heart-to-heart talk. What can I stand?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. And pray.
What does
And
common
pray.
sense-
Back to our original thing. God is in control. You're not alone, and this is not your fault. And I do know that definitely discerning is going to be key here, because we don't want to make any impulsive decisions. Certainly, people could lose a lot of money if they just withdraw their 401k right away, right? So it depends on, we have to kind of discern, like you said, what our priorities are, what history tells us, but also what our financial advisors are helping us through, so that we can make a well-informed decision rather than a quick decision, because
exactly,
different
your
people might have
financial
different
advisors,
stories.
They have been trying, usually, to diversify your investments, okay? And so you may already be in a good position in cash, but
Right.
you also have stocks and you also have bonds.
Right.
The only thing I think that needs to be mentioned is most people consider stocks to be perhaps risky and bonds safe. That is something else that no longer applies today. So bonds today are just as risky as stocks, because understand, as interest rates go down, the value of bonds go up. Okay? And I won't get into the reasons why, but trust me, they do. Okay? And so we're at the basement. Interest rates have gone down from 9% all the way down to 0% today. Okay? So interest rates, I was going to say, can't go any lower, but we know in Europe they have negative interest rates, which is bizarre. But that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But interest rates can't go much lower. Therefore, bonds could be at the top. At some point in time, the Federal Reserve is going to have to start increasing interest rates. And when they do, the value of bonds is going to start declining and dropping.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
So again, are we at a point in time where the bond market is still at a very high, as well as the stock market? So these are the type of questions you need to have with your financial advisor, and
Sure.
see where you go.
Thank you, Steve.
I learned a lot.
Goodness gracious.
This has been a good time.
There's a lot to think about.
I think I may finish this bottle off after we get off the air and go look for another one.
Well, just a final note, Steve, for those that maybe were interested in all that we've been saying and maybe spark some interest, they might be feeling overwhelmed. Like, this is just so much to take in, and I don't know what my next steps would be. So for somebody that may be watching and maybe they don't have a financial advisor, maybe do you have like maybe one step or two of a resource or anything or a piece of advice for them on where they should go next after this conversation?
If they don't have a financial advisor, again, they may have a banker. They may have a friend or a relative who has a little financial experience. But try to talk to someone that has some background in that. But again, everybody's an expert until they're not. So you have to to be careful there, because they really do need to be knowledgeable about this stuff, and they need to know what your personal situation is. So until one sees your personal financial statements, your assets and your debt, and what you're invested in, it's hard to really give a good.
Great. So basically what I'm hearing you say is the best thing you can do is to find a financial advisor that you trust to help you through this.
Sure.
Good.
And by the way, you want to say maybe something about just...
Well, yeah, and I know that one resource that came my way, apparently Dave Ramsey, who is a common financial advisor in popular culture right now, he has a financial peace university that's kind of gained some traction throughout the years, but typically it costs about $150 to take this course online, but for the time being, it's actually free. So we're going to provide the link in the comments for you to access that if for those that are interested in taking that course. It is a free course that's typically not free. So just in addition to having a financial advisor, a place that somebody could go was brought my way. So.
And Father White, the timing couldn't be perfect. If we're locked in our homes and you have something free to study about finances, what a great time to learn about something that's really critical to
that could help you for the rest of your life.
Well-being.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Well, Steve, it's been a joy to have you. It being, gosh, I can't believe it's already 40 minutes. It always goes by so fast, but it's always a joy.
Sure. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to the parish. You've helped us be fiscally responsible with the parish's resources. It's been a blessing. So thank you so much for all that you do for us.
Thank you, Father.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Good evening.
Cheers. Good evening, and good night, everyone.